When someone says, let's impose tariffs on foreign imports, it looks like they're doing the patriotic thing by protecting American products and jobs. And sometimes for a short while it works, but only for a short time. But over the long run, such trade barriers hurt every American worker and consumer. High tariffs inevitably lead to retaliation by foreign countries and the triggering of fierce trade wars. Then the worst happens. Markets shrink and collapse, businesses and industries shut down, and millions of people lose their jobs. Throughout the world, there's a growing realization that the way to prosperity for all nations is rejecting protectionist legislation and promoting fair and free competition. America's jobs and growth are at stake.
So as of right now, I'm sure a lot of you have heard all the commotion about this ad that Premier Ford put out all over Republican states in America. And I'm just going to show you and give you some of my feedback about what I think about this. But I'm going to play this for you from Global News first before I get to that.
Developing news overnight. U.S. President Donald Trump turned up the heat on the trade war. On social media, Trump saying he is ending all trade negotiations with Canada because of recent TV ads protesting U.S. tariffs, which he calls egregious behavior aimed at influencing U.S. court decisions. It cited a claim from the Reagan Foundation that the video misrepresents the former president's words. The ads were paid for by the government of Ontario for $75 million and ran on several U.S. networks, including NBC and Fox. Trump's response also comes after Prime Minister Mark Carney said he's hoping to double Canadian exports to countries outside the U.S. because of Trump's tariff threats.
Throughout the world, there's a growing realization that the way to prosperity for all nations is rejecting protectionist legislation and promoting fair and free competition. America's jobs and growth are at stake.
I heard that the president heard our ad. I'm sure he wasn't too happy, but it's real because it was coming from the best president the country's ever seen, Ronald Reagan. So it's very effective. It's probably one of the best ads I've ever seen, and it's coming from Ronald Reagan's voice. And it's going to be focused on right across the country, but also in Republican-held areas.
Our officials, my colleagues, have been working with their American colleagues on detailed, constructive negotiations, discussions on specific transactions, specific sectors, steel, aluminum, and energy. And a lot of progress has been made. And we stand ready to pick up on that progress and build on that progress when the Americans are ready to have those discussions, because it will be for the benefit of workers in the United States, workers in Canada, and families in both of our.
Now, listen, I completely understand what Doug Ford was trying to do here. That doesn't mean that it was necessarily a good idea. It doesn't mean that it was necessarily a good idea. Now, I will say this. I showed you guys the commercial, which is the first one that I played. And was it effective? Probably. Maybe it was. Maybe it was. I don't really know how they feel in America about this commercial right now, but it was put out a bunch of Republican states who were playing this ad. They said during MSNBC it was on, Fox it was on. I heard Doug Ford say he wanted to put it on CNN, but they kind of got rattled and didn't put it out. But they used pretty much Ronald Reagan talking about tariffs and tried to leverage that against President Donald Trump right now. So I understand that what Premier Ford was trying to do, because we know that he's been extremely pissed off about all the tariffs that are being imposed on Canada. And you're seeing businesses, corporations, and all that kind of stuff leaving Canada right now. A lot of jobs are leaving Canada and headed back south of the border because of these tariffs, right? He doesn't like that very much, understandably so. But is this necessarily the best way to handle it? That's what we're going to speak about. Now, the ad was reportedly $75 million, made and ran by the government of Ontario. So this is not like something that's coming out of Ottawa and being run by the federal government. This is out of Ontario. And so that is this is strange because I mean, at this point, with the mess that Canada is currently in with this whole damn tariff situation, I'm pretty sure that the large, and I mean far large majority of people would rather Prime Minister Mark Carney handle this on his own at this point. At least that's what I would think that most people would want. Because listen, it was a bold idea, but you have to weigh the pros and the cons before this ad goes out. Did people think it would be this effective? I mean, I'm sure they ran some data analytics on this and, to see how effective they thought it would be. But like I mentioned, they're now pulling this ad. But the thing is, it's blown up so much now on social media that yes, it has been pulled from the stations that it was being played on, but it's everywhere. It's viral now. So you're still going to be seeing this ad all over the place, which is probably what Premier Doug Ford wanted. So, I mean, where do you go from here now? Because now it provoked an immediate backlash from President Trump adding an additional 10% to the tariffs that he already had in place on Canada, which is probably bad for both sides because the Americans are going to have to pay that tariff. For those of you who understand how tariffs work, it's the Americans that are going to pay the 10% for that tariff. Now, it's also bad for Canada because with the tariffs that were already implemented, adding an additional 10% might be the backbreaker for certain companies to say, you know what, the hell with this. We're not going to be dealing with all these damn tariffs anymore. And because of that, we are now going to move this business, whatever business it may be, if it's in Canada, south of the border over to the United States or close down potentially altogether. It's not good for anyone. It ain't good for anybody as far as I see it. And so how this is going to play out in the long run, because I mentioned this before, everything is a long-term game here. Everything is a long-term game. And what this does to the relationship between Prime Minister Mark Carney and Premier Doug Ford, we're going to have to wait and see how this thing turns out. Because I'm wondering what the relationship is like behind closed door with these two. Now, Doug Ford was really supportive of Prime Minister Mark Carney during the federal election, and he's been, an ally to him thus far since he's become the prime minister. But when things like this happen, and now you make it more difficult for Mark Carney and his cabinet to be able to negotiate against these tariffs with President Donald Trump, what happens to the relationship between Mark Carney, Prime Minister Mark Carney, and Premier Doug Ford? Do they speak about these things before he actually just goes and does them? Or does he just do them? Does he not need any type of permission to make this happen? I'm going to assume he does not. And like I mentioned, yes, the ad does seem like it was effective. It's a damn good commercial, I'll tell you that much. But will that work for Canada in any way? As of right now, I think we have to wait and see. But I'm just going to go ahead and say no for 500, Bob. I'm going to say no for 500 because let's face it. The message that you wanted to get across in regards to tariffs and how America and Canada have been allies for God knows how many years at this point, working alongside each other, fighting alongside each other. Do we not think that all of these people already didn't know this? I mean, I'm pretty sure that they already did. Now, who was this for? Was this for business owners, just the general public of the people in these Republican states? Who was your target market here? Just anybody watching on these stations? Because I'm pretty damn sure that the people who are watching on these stations, maybe you changed the mind of a few people. Maybe you did. But overall, it seems like in those states, the overwhelming majority are in favor of whatever President Trump does. And I'm not sure how much this ad was going to change the minds of anyone. Maybe a few. But now the ad has been taken down. It has definitely made the rounds on social media. But did it really do anything besides, get an extra 10% of tariffs put on Canada? I don't know. We're going to have to wait and see. But as of right now, I'm looking at this as it was probably not the greatest decision in the world from Premier Doug Ford. And then on top of that, there were accusations of misrepresentation. The Ronald Reagan Presidential Foundation criticized the ad for using selective audio and video clips out of order, claiming it distorted Reagan's full context, which included support for targeted tariffs like Japanese semiconductors, promoting legal threats and undermining the ad's factual integrity. So you have to deal with that as well. And pretty much what I'm saying is they have now threatened to use legal action against the government of Ontario for running those ads. So now you're going to have to deal with that on top of it. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't know what the hell is going to happen when it comes to all of these damn tariffs. We're losing a lot of jobs in the province of Ontario. It is not looking good right now. And I'm sure these additional 10% tariffs are probably going to do a little bit more damage to that in addition. We're just going to have to wait and see what the hell happens at this point. I know Prime Minister Mark Carney is out in Asia, and he is trying to strengthen the relationships with countries, prime ministers, world leaders, and stuff over in that area so that they can, do more business, bigger business with other parts of the world, because you're kind of forced to have to do that at this point. So what is going to happen? I have no idea. I guess we'll find out a little bit more in a few days, because this is not going to end here. It's not going to end here. It's going to keep going, and we are going to find out what is going to be happening next. At MikeRoach23 on X, make sure you follow, like, subscribe, and share the Mike Roach podcast. Thanks for listening. I'll be back again soon, and I'm out.